Studio microphone, narrator style, dramatic and emotional. Imagine this: John Cena, one of the biggest WWE superstars and Hollywood heroes, quietly walks into a movie theater that he secretly owns. No cameras, no spotlight, just a hoodie, a cap, and a man blending in with the crowd. But then he freezes, because in the corner of the lobby, two girls are talking, words that hit Cena straight in the heart. What happens next is something no one in that theater will ever forget. Stay with us till the end to see how John Cena turned this unexpected moment into a life-changing lesson. Smash that like button if you believe in never give up. Speech balloon comment, yes, if you're a true John Cena fan. And tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful John Cena stories that will inspire your life. It was late evening, and the glow of neon lights bounced off the glass doors of a small-town movie theater in Los Angeles. Families shuffled in, teenagers laughed as they took selfies, and the sound of soda machines hummed in the background. The lobby was buzzing with life, but no one noticed the tall figure who had just slipped inside. He wore a simple gray hoodie, jeans, and a cap pulled down low. His broad shoulders and strong build hinted at who he was, but the disguise worked. No one paid attention. He moved quietly, almost as if he belonged to the shadows. It was John Cena. For years, he had been the center of attention. WWE arenas chanting his name, cameras flashing on red carpets, strangers asking for photos wherever he went. But tonight was different. Tonight, he didn't want to be recognized. He wanted to walk into his own movie theater as just another man. Cena paused for a moment near the entrance, letting his eyes wander across the posters. One was a blockbuster action movie where his own face stared back at him, larger than life, holding a weapon against a backdrop of explosions. He smirked under the hood. Funny, he thought. That guy on the wall looks like a hero. But tonight, I just want to feel human. He moved toward the concession counter. The smell of popcorn butter drifted around him. A young employee behind the counter asked cheerfully, "What can I get for you, sir?" Cena kept his voice low. "Large popcorn and a soda, please." The cashier didn't recognize him, didn't hesitate. Just poured the drink, filled the popcorn bucket, and rang it up like he would for anyone else. Cena handed over a few bills, nodded politely, and walked away. Holding the drink in one hand and the popcorn in the other, he scanned the theater. Groups of friends gathered near the ticket booth. Parents held their kids by the hand. A couple argued over which movie to pick. It was everyday life, simple, ordinary, and strangely beautiful. For a man who lived in the constant spotlight, this felt refreshing. Nobody was staring. Nobody was shouting Cena. Nobody expected him to be larger than life. For the first time in months, maybe even years, he felt invisible. And he liked it, leaning against the far wall. He took a sip from his soda. He let the noise of the theater sink in. The laughter, the chatter, the crinkle of candy wrappers. This was what he came for. Not the film itself, but the people, their reactions, their energy. He wanted to remind himself why he ever stepped into storytelling, whether in the ring or on the screen. But then something shifted. As Cena started moving toward the screening hall, his ears caught a different sound. Not laughter, not excitement. Two teenage girls, standing near the corner of the lobby, were speaking in hushed voices. Their tone was softer, serious. Cena slowed his steps, pretending to check his phone. But he was listening. The popcorn in his hand felt suddenly lighter. The noise of the theater dimmed in his mind. Every word from those girls' conversation cut through the air like it was meant only for him. And in that moment, John Cena stopped cold. Something about what they were saying gripped his heart in a way he never expected. The night had just taken a turn. John Cena stood still, his cap lowered, popcorn in hand. From the corner of the lobby, the voices of two teenage girls pulled him in. They weren't talking about movies or snacks or homework like most kids their age. Their tone was heavier. Their words carried a weight that pierced through the noise of the theater. One of the girls, her backpack slung loosely over her shoulder, whispered with a shaky voice, "Sometimes, I feel like I don't even exist. Like nobody notices me. Even at school, I'm just invisible." Cena's jaw tightened under the hood. The word invisible struck him harder than he expected. He remembered those nights when entire arenas would chant, "Cena sucks." He remembered the times when people doubted him, laughed at him, told him he didn't belong. For a moment, he wasn't standing in a movie theater. He was back in that painful silence after a loss, sitting alone in a locker room. The second girl placed a gentle hand on her friend's shoulder. Her tone was stronger, but her eyes shimmered with emotion. "Hey, don't say that. You're not invisible. Look at John Cena." People booed him, people mocked him, and still he showed up. Every single day. If he can do it, why can't we? Cena's chest tightened. His heart pounded harder. They were talking about him. Not the actor, not the wrestler, not the celebrity, but the fighter, the man who stood tall when the world tried to push him down. The first girl sniffled, shaking her head. "Yeah, but he's John Cena. He's strong. He's famous. I'm just me." Her voice cracked on the last word. Cena took a slow breath, his hands curling slightly around the soda cup. He wanted to step in, to say something, but he stopped himself. For now, he just listened. The second girl leaned closer and whispered fiercely, "No, that's the point. He wasn't always famous. He fought, he failed, he was doubted, but he kept going. Never give up." That's what he says, right? Maybe we need to believe that too. Cena's eyes burned with emotion. He lowered his gaze to the popcorn bucket in his hand, but his ears stayed locked on their voices. At that moment, he realized something powerful. Without even knowing it, he had become a symbol for them. They didn't know he was standing just a few feet away. They were talking about his life as if it were a story, and using it to find their own strength. Cena stood frozen. For a man who had lifted championships, starred in movies, and stood before millions, this, right here, was different. Two young girls, in a quiet theater lobby, reminding him of what his journey truly meant. And inside, John Cena knew he couldn't stay silent much longer. John Cena didn't move. His feet felt glued to the theater floor. The girls' voices still echoed in his ears, every word heavier than the last. "I feel invisible." Those words replayed in his mind. Invisible. Forgotten. Overlooked. Cena's chest rose and fell slowly as memories rushed back. He remembered the nights when he would walk into the WWE arena and hear an ocean of boos. "Cena sucks." Chants so loud they drowned out everything else. He remembered losing matches that the whole world thought he would win, sitting in the locker room with his head down, feeling like he had let everyone down, himself most of all. There were moments, dark ones, when he questioned if he should keep going. Times when giving up seemed easier. Times when he, too, felt invisible despite being under the brightest lights in the world. He blinked hard, pulling himself back to the present. The girls were still talking, unaware that John Cena, the man they were using as an example of strength, was standing right there, just a few steps away. His hand tightened around the soda cup until the ice inside shifted. For the first time in years, he felt vulnerable in public. Not because anyone recognized him, but because their words had cut straight into the core of who he was. One of the girls laughed nervously and said, "I mean, think about it. If he quit when everyone booed him, we wouldn't even know his name. But he didn't. He kept showing up. Maybe that's what we should do too." Cena's throat went dry. He tilted his head slightly downward, letting the brim of his cap hide his face even more. The irony was almost surreal. Here he was, hiding in plain sight, while strangers spoke about his struggles more honestly than he ever had. He felt a tug inside, a war between staying quiet or stepping forward. But he couldn't move. Not yet. The theater crowd bustled around him, the sound of ticket stubs tearing, popcorn being scooped, and laughter filling the lobby. All of it blurred into background noise. To Cena, the world had gone silent, except for those two voices. His pulse raced. His eyes shifted between the girls and the glowing movie posters on the wall. Invisible. Never give up. Cena sucks. Keep fighting. All the words mixed in his head like a storm. For the first time in a long time, John Cena wasn't the star of the show. He wasn't the man in control. He was just a human being, frozen in place, reminded of why he ever fought so hard in the first place. And deep down, he knew something had to happen next. He couldn't just let this moment pass. John Cena didn't move closer. He didn't interrupt. He simply leaned against the far wall of the lobby, his head slightly lowered, pretending to sip from his soda. From the outside, he looked like just another customer waiting for his movie to start. But inside, every word from those two girls hit him harder than any punch he had ever taken inside the ring. The first girl sighed deeply, her voice breaking a little. "It's just, sometimes I feel like no matter how hard I try, nobody sees me. I'll never matter the way people like him matter." She pointed toward one of the posters on the wall. The poster of John Cena's latest movie, his face lit up in heroic glory. Cena's heart skipped a beat. He followed her gesture, staring at his own larger-than-life image staring back at him. To them, that poster represented strength, fame, and success. But to him, in this moment, it reminded him of the battles nobody ever saw. The nights of doubt, the mornings of pain, the pressure to keep going when the world wanted him to stop. The second girl shook her head and stepped closer to her friend. "Don't you get it? That's the point. He's not perfect. He got booed. He got hated. People wanted him gone. And still he stood there. Every single time. That's why he says it. Never give up." Cena's lips tightened. He had heard that phrase a million times, shouted by fans, printed on shirts, chanted in arenas. But tonight, hearing it whispered by two young girls who believed in it like a lifeline, it felt different. It felt real. The first girl wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket. "But what if I'm not strong enough? What if I try, and I still fail?" Her friend didn't hesitate. She gripped her hand and said firmly, "Then you try again. And again." That's what he did. That's why we know his name today. Because he never stopped trying. And neither should you. Cena's chest swelled with emotion. His eyes burned, not from the bright theater lights, but from the raw truth of what he was hearing. Here were two young strangers, using his story to push each other forward, to believe that life could still change. And they didn't even know he was standing just a few feet away. For a moment, Cena closed his eyes. He could feel the weight of his career, his choices, his battles all collapsing into this one silent moment. He realized something he hadn't felt in a long time. His journey, his pain, his fight, it actually mattered. Not because it made him famous, not because it made him rich, but because it gave hope to people who needed it most. He opened his eyes slowly, looking at the two girls again. His instinct told him to walk over, to speak, to comfort them. But another part of him knew this was bigger than just a conversation. This was a chance to remind himself, and them, what never give up truly meant. So he stayed still, silent, listening, observing. Every second, their words carved deeper into his heart. And Cena knew. The moment to step forward was getting closer. The girls were still talking, their voices low but full of emotion. The first one wiped her eyes and whispered, "I just don't know if I'll ever be good enough, strong enough." John Cena's chest rose as he took a slow, deep breath. For minutes he had stood silent, listening, hiding in plain sight. But now, his heart wouldn't let him stay still anymore. He placed the popcorn bucket on the counter behind him and stepped forward. His boots made a soft thud on the theater floor, but the girls didn't notice until his shadow fell across them. The first girl turned her head slightly and froze. Her eyes widened, her breath caught in her throat. The second followed her gaze, and in an instant, both of them were staring, mouths open in shock. The man they had just been talking about was standing right in front of them. John Cena slowly lifted his cap, pulling it back just enough for his face to be seen clearly. His expression was calm, gentle, almost fatherly. His voice, deep but kind, broke the silence. "You're not invisible," the first girl gasped. "Oh my God, you're..." her friend stammered. "You're John Cena." People in the lobby turned their heads, curious about the sudden noise. But Cena didn't care. His eyes stayed locked on the two girls, his presence towering yet comforting at the same time. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only they could hear. "I couldn't help but listen," he said softly. "And I want you both to know something. I've felt the same way. I've felt invisible. I felt like I didn't belong. But that's when you dig deep. That's when you fight harder. Because no one has the right to tell you that you don't matter." Tears welled up in the first girl's eyes. She covered her mouth with her hands, overwhelmed. The second girl, usually the strong one, suddenly looked as if the weight of her own words had just doubled now that they were standing in front of the man himself. Cena placed a hand gently on the counter, leaning in just slightly, his voice steady and warm. "You see me up there on posters in movies in the ring, but behind all that, I'm just a man who refused to give up. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going." The girls stood frozen, silent, every word sinking into their hearts. And for the first time that evening, John Cena wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't invisible either. He was exactly what he had always promised to be. Someone who stood for those who needed strength. The big reveal wasn't about a superstar taking off his hoodie. It was about reminding two young girls, and himself, that hope is real, and it sometimes stands right in front of you. The lobby had gone quieter. A few people were staring now, realizing who stood there. But John Cena's focus was only on the two girls. His voice carried both strength and gentleness, the kind that made you feel safe even in your weakest moment. He looked at the first girl, the one who had called herself invisible. "You think you're not strong enough?" Cena asked softly. "Do you know how many times I've heard those same words about me?" The girls exchanged a glance, confused. Cena continued. "When I first stepped into WWE, people laughed. They said I wouldn't last a month. They booed me out of arenas. I'd walk backstage, and sometimes, even my own colleagues didn't believe I belonged there." His jaw clenched, but his eyes stayed gentle. "I've been beaten, humiliated, broken down in front of millions. There were nights I wanted to quit. Nights I thought maybe the world was right about me. But every single time, I remembered the promise I made to myself. Never give up." The second girl whispered, almost to herself. "That's what we were saying." Cena nodded. "That phrase isn't just a slogan on a t-shirt. It's my life. It means when you feel invisible, you keep going. When the world tells you no, you say, 'Yes, I can.' And when you fall, you get back up. Because the moment you give up on yourself, that's the moment the world wins." The first girl's eyes shimmered with tears. "But what if it's too hard?" Cena stepped closer, his massive frame towering, but his presence calm, reassuring. "Then you take it one step at a time. That's what I did. One match at a time. One day at a time. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to win every battle. You just have to keep showing up. Because showing up means you're stronger than yesterday." His words lingered in the air. For the girls, it wasn't just advice. It was proof. Proof that even the strongest heroes had once been doubted, broken, and forced to fight for their place. Cena's voice softened. "You don't need a spotlight to matter. You don't need fame to be important. Right now, just standing here, being who you are, you matter. Don't ever forget that." Both girls stood speechless, their tears now freely falling. For them, this wasn't John Cena the superstar. This was John Cena the man, sharing his scars so they could find their strength. And in that moment, the lesson wasn't just for them. It was for everyone who had ever felt invisible. The two girls stood frozen, their eyes red with tears, their hands trembling slightly. They had come to watch a simple movie on a normal night, but instead, they were standing face to face with a man whose words had carried them through some of their darkest days. John Cena slowly reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out his wallet. Without hesitation, he handed both girls movie tickets and said, "Tonight, you're not just watching a film. You're going to remember this moment for the rest of your lives. And so will I." The girls looked at the tickets in disbelief, then back at Cena. He gave them a reassuring smile, that same smile millions of fans had seen after countless battles in the ring. But here, it wasn't about victory. It was about connection. As they walked together toward the screening hall, whispers filled the lobby. People recognized him now. Some gasped, some pulled out their phones, but Cena didn't care. His focus was on the two girls beside him, walking as if they were his little sisters. They entered the theater. The lights dimmed, the giant screen flickered on, and for the first time ever, the girls sat in a cinema watching a John Cena film, with John Cena himself sitting right next to them. One of them whispered softly, almost like a secret, "I can't believe this is real." Cena leaned in, his voice low but firm. "Believe it, because this is your reminder. You are not invisible. You matter. And you always will. The movie played, but for those two girls, the real story had already happened. A story they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. When the credits rolled, Cena stood and waited with them until the crowd began to leave. Before parting ways, he shook their hands firmly, looked them in the eye, and said, "Promise me one thing. Never give up." Both nodded through tears, whispering, "We promise." And with that, Cena pulled his cap low once more and walked out into the night. The world might have seen him as a superstar, but to those two girls, he was proof that heroes could be real. That night, they hadn't just watched a movie. They had lived a memory, one that would outshine any Hollywood script. Imagine this. You walk into a movie theater, and John Cena sits right beside you. What would you do? Clapperboard. Fire smash that like button if you believe in the power of never give up. Speech balloon comment yes if you're part of the John Cena family. And tell us the city you're watching from. Bell, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories that prove heroes aren't just on screen. Sometimes, they're standing right in front of us.